The
Coming up on
engagement
Unleash
is my
Thyself.
challenge. And, how can I be engaged without turning off the relaxation? There's a really fine balance. Because also, if I'm not engaged enough, I'm not actually relaxed. So I would encourage people to start exploring that. And then, if you struggle to be relaxed, find a practice that helps cultivate a sense of relaxation.
Welcome, beautiful soul, to Unleash Thyself, a podcast where we journey into the depths of personal transformation, spirituality, and growth. I'm your host, Constantin Morun, and today we welcome Michael Peterson. Michael is an approach coach, transformational guide, and ceremonialist focused on helping people on the path of self-discovery to transform outdated ways of being so they can blossom. Now, he draws inspiration from witnessing the resilience and growth potential within every individual and firmly believes that life is a beautiful journey designed to support our becoming. And with that being said, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Constantine. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Likewise, I love what you talk about because it's rooted in pretty much what I believe these days and what I'm coming from as well. And I noticed that one of the areas you like to talk about is ayahuasca. And I want to start right there because Mother Ayahuasca is the reason I'm even doing what I'm doing today. It opened up my perspective, it opened up my eyes and my heart to what's possible. Let me ask you this: what, in a couple of sentences, what's your take on plant medicine and specifically ayahuasca?
Plant in a couple of sentences. Okay.
Because I want to dive deeper, but I want for anyone listening, it's like some people have experience with plant medicine, but many others are like, "Oh, that's woo. I don't know if I want to touch that." Or
Which
scary.
is fair. So, in a couple of sentences, I would say that ayahuasca and plant medicine as a whole is a powerful ally that can help open up the system so that it can receive the messages that it needs to, and that it can be a wonderful component of a spiritual path. Um, I would also put forth that if ayahuasca alone led to enlightenment, the jungle would be full of enlightened beings, and they're still human. So, I think it's very supportive as a tool on a path, and it has its space and its use, and I know where I stand on that. And it needs to be
Mhm.
part of a larger framework and a larger context.
Absolutely. I love that, Michael. And I agree with you 100%. After I had a chance to sit with Mother Ayahuasca a few years back, I thought for sure it was the answer to every problem in the world and everyone would have to see with it. And then, of course, the more I integrated, the more I did my research, the more I realized it's just like you said, it's a tool. It will work for some people, it will be good for some people, but it might not be for everyone.
Mm.
And there's many tools in the toolbox that one can dive into. I'm curious to see your take. Have you seen, from your experience, cases where plant medicine could be ayahuasca, could be something else, was not the right tool at that moment in time for someone?
Absolutely. um, and a lot of what I've seen within that is where I, there's two ways that I've seen that. One is people are curious about ayahuasca, but their body just isn't ready for it. Ayahuasca has some physically taxing properties to it, and there are health
Yeah.
conditions that will make people ineligible. And so it's not right for everybody on a physiological level. On another From another lens, there are people who I have seen who have worked with plant medicine, they've tried ayahuasca, and either they didn't have an experience or they had a challenging experience, or uh, even if they've had a positive experience, they've come out of it and said, this is great, but it's not where I want to spend my time, energy, and focus. And I think that's a beautiful thing. We sample different. If you think of all the spiritual paths as different plates of food at a buffet, in my experience, we go around sampling them and we figure out both what we like, what tastes good to us, and then we have to balance that what tastes good with what is actually supporting our system, and
Yeah.
how do we actually nourish ourselves. Ice cream can taste great, and if that's the only food that we eat, we're probably missing some key nutrients. And so that's my take on it.
I love that take, Michael, and I'm with you 100%. I mean, I've only sat with Mother Ayahuasca a few times, but all within the same 12-day retreat, and I
Mm.
noticed even within that group of people, which was about 30 people by the end of it, coming in and out, doing various ceremonies. There were exactly like you said. Some people had no experience, so then they dismissed it, and then a couple of people even left after the first ceremony. Most people that had no experience the first time, the second time had, according to them, the best night of their life because it cleared things up and then it opened them up. But then there were people that had such challenging experiences with lots of fears coming up that they were too afraid to glean the lessons from it and bring them into their life. So it's really interesting looking back to see, and of course reading all the anecdotes and talking to people like yourself to see how you can take something like this, like any other medicine, like you said, like a plate of the buffet, and misinterpret it and also perhaps abuse it at times. Because I also met people that, you know, not a shaman, not someone that's trained in it, but sitting with ayahuasca or other plant medicine so often that they get essentially pulled away from reality because they want that high, they want that.
To be fair, that can happen with shamans too. I
Yeah.
mean, even if you have training, it's a constant recalibration and a listening, right? Like, are you listening to the mystery, to spirit, to your body, and can you navigate skillfully when we have those things that once distract us? And how do we know if the resistance that we're encountering is something that we need to push through, something that we need to become gentle with and navigate to the
Mm,
side of? And so there's no, I would love to tell your audience, hey, here's the clear answer, and it's super simple. And I can definitely share some tips and tricks that for me have been useful. And with that said, you know, the possibility for abuse, the possibility for distraction, the possibility to have anything happen is really interesting because one, those people who had no experiences, and my first two ayahuasca experiences, nothing happened.
mm,
It was my third ceremony where things popped through.
mhm.
Um, and then there was a period of time where it was really frustrating to get in. How do we work with frustration? How do we work with a sense of determination? How do we work with the material that comes up in that space that can be challenging? And are we willing to look at it? And even if you see it and you say, no, I'm not willing to work with it, that was too scary, you can't unsee what you've seen.
Yes, that's a big
So,
one.
so, and ayahuasca, for your listeners, has this really beautiful way of gently opening you up. And even after a retreat, the effects of the medicine are still playing out. Granted, it's not maybe as in your face, but people talk about ayahuasca and you hear these stories from celebrities, or you go onto Reddit and you hear all the stories there. And it's like politics. People talk about the extremes. So you have a bunch of hell scenarios and you have cosmic bliss. And those are and aliens and all these other strange things that are out there. There's so much room in between that. And what I love about plant medicine is when you can start to explore those subtle spaces. you know, there's a somatic component. There's learning how to work with your physical body, and how do we bridge the physical existence that we are experiencing with the spiritual, more esoteric and
Yeah.
etheric dynamic. Like, that's where we start to be entering a place that's really fun. And that's where I spend a lot of my time exploring.
Exploring, yeah. And how do you explore these days?
Sometimes with plant medicine. I say that a lot of my exploration is really through contemplation. And what I mean by contemplation um, is listening. Uh, for me, I had all these experiences with however many hundreds of ceremonies and however many dietas I've done. And the essence of it was something that I needed to distill. And I realized that what plant medicine was teaching me was how to be real. And for me, that meant, am I relaxed? Am I engaged? Am I authentic? Am I loving? And where do I struggle with that? And
Mhm.
generally, for me, it can be all four of those areas. But my my practice in terms of navigating that compass is by allowing myself to flow. And that question is, am I feeling? Am I listening? Am I opening to the world? Or am I in a state of wonder and awe and curiosity? These are my personal checks. It doesn't mean that I'm always doing them.
Yeah,
Uh, so if I'm not feeling, if I'm, or if I'm trying to shut down the feeling, or if I'm not listening, then I get to explore what's going on. What is making me not want to listen? What's making me want to feel isolated? And then I get to actually just do my practices, which are meditation, but also both active and receptive forms. And then also just sitting there and listening to the world around me, time in nature, um, and just being a good human, whatever that means. Can I be a good husband? Can I be a good friend? Can I listen and not project all of my stuff onto everybody else? That's the essence of this practice. And whatever spiritual practice that we're doing, whatever human optimization, self development stuff we're doing, does it help us be more real? Does it help us be a better spouse and or a better partner or even outside of a connection? Like, does it help us actually be better? Or are we just incessantly scratching this itch of unworthiness? And that's what I've seen is helping people get to that place where they just get to explore in their lives and explore their experience here on earth and bring in the spiritual woo woo side to the okay, but I need to have a job. I need to put food on my table. I've got a bunch of people who I'm interacting with. How do you blend those together? There's something that's where the magic is to me.
I love that so much, Michael. Yeah, absolutely. You're right on the money there. And introspection has been my biggest ally in my transformation too over the last few years. And reflection and meditation and all the beautiful practices that allow you to go within because we hold the answers within. And I believe that's one of the biggest misconceptions or lies that's being spread, where it's supposed to be showing us, or the world showing us, that all the answers are somehow external of us.
Mm,
When really, what I have found on my journey and the journey of many people I've been able to guide and so on is we hold all the answers, but because of all the noise, because of all the stories, because of all the things we were told, we seem to be seeking it externally. Because if, and I'm curious to see your take here, with ayahuasca, for example, or any other plant medicines, it's, yeah, it might show you some external things or how the universe works, but really brings it all back internal. That's why people have difficult trips, because it's bringing up the shadow aspects of them, right? It's bringing up aspects that need looking at, that need healing, that need something to be paid attention to. And that's why I find that if we start looking internally, then we open up this Pandora's box of potential.
mm. It's so scary to look internally.
Can
Like
be.
it can be. And you talked about the shadow, which I love shadow work. um, and it's going into the unseen aspects of ourself, right? But there's also the golden shadow that Carl Jung and others talk about, which is the positive attributes to ourself that we don't want to see.
Yes.
And so, yeah, you go inside and you think you're going to encounter all this crap, but then you're also avoiding the gold that's there. And in my introduction, I came up, I thought that I came up with the term approach coach. I liked it. And then a friend and mentor was like, hey, it sounds like you're a dating coach. And I looked up approach coach at that point in time and it was like, it is a dating coach. And so I kind of like to embrace that, which is, look, we are dating life. We are dating the mystery. And that means that we're in relationship with it. And it's not a thing, it's a who. And so who are you? How are you relating to the mystery of the unknown that is you? How are you relating to the mystery of the unknown that is life?
Yes.
And as you go about forming and exploring that relationship, do you want to learn? Do you want to be a good partner, like to yourself and to life? And what does that mean? And so, sure, it can be scary. It's going to require you to grow. Ayahuasca can hold up a mirror. Meditation can hold up a mirror. And it's an adventure. You're being called to it. You're already alive. Do you choose to accept that fact and then figure out how to engage with
Yeah.
it? Or do you want to sit by wishing that you weren't, kind of numbing out and not having to think about it? And honestly, both are fine. I've certainly done the latter of those where I'm like, damn it, here I am again.
Absolutely.
but but I do think that there's a very somatic pressure that we all deal with as humans, which is a choice to be alive and to engage with what that means. Because we don't know.
No, no one knows.
Yeah. And all of these mystery traditions are pointing and they're saying things, but you have to go on the adventure yourself.
Yeah. And
Hey, it's Constantin here, and I want to take a brief moment to truly thank you for being a part of this incredible journey of transformation. You are the reason we are creating this content. I see you and I appreciate you. Your support truly means the world to me. I want to ask you for a small favor. I'd love for you to join our mission by hitting like, subscribe, or leaving a thoughtful comment or review. Your engagement helps others discover these insights, and together we can continue to unlock the power of authenticity and personal transformation. Thank you for being a part of this movement. Now, back to the episode.
and I love what you touched on there, right? Like there shouldn't be much judgment, shame, guilt around whatever choice you make, right? If you want to embark on the journey, on the adventure or not. And I find that just based on my personal experience of the past, right, when I would make choices that, in my mind, in my opinion, weren't advancing me on this journey of whatever I was journeying on, there would be a lot of shame and guilt and judgment coming up with it, right, which would further put you in the opposite direction of the direction you want to go in.
Hmm.
And now I come to a place where certain choices are made, let's say, in the detriment perhaps of the path I want to be on, because I'm still a work in progress like everyone else. But then if I can remove or eliminate or bring more love and remove the shame and guilt that's associated with it, is, I enjoyed myself. I went out and I had some food with my friends, right? Instead of beating myself up, can you find the love in that? Can you find the progress in it? I find it does allow you to stick to whatever path you decided to be on a lot easier than fighting it, right? Every time you take a step off the path, you beat yourself up. So then you you kind of turn around and run away.
Yeah. I mean, you're you're alive. Whoever is listening to this, if you are listening to this, you are alive. And that means that you've already accepted the adventure.
Mm,
It's just how are you how is your adventure going?
yeah,
Like, okay, is it conscious? Is it present? Are you caught up in a bunch of old stories and patterns that used to serve you and aren't any longer? Um, how do you get rid of them? How do you change them in a way that's not just reacting to the world around you, but where you actually get to respond? You know,
that's beautiful. And
this,
you mentioned a couple of things there as well earlier, right, about some tips and tricks when it comes to going on a journey like this, and you're sharing some of them right now. But what have you seen from obviously your journey, the journey of those you got to help? That are some things that maybe work for most people, but we are for whatever reason not doing them.
mm, practice. I mean, this is the key to everything. You know, practice, 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 and be
So,
honest and honesty.
well, honestly, to yourself, I would imagine more than anything else, really, because you can't really be honest to anyone else until you're honest to yourself.
Yeah, honesty and integrity. I would put as the other part, right? So they go hand in hand. If I'm being honest with myself, am I doing something that is in my integrity or out of my integrity? If I'm honest with myself that I'm
Yeah,
doing something that's out of integrity and I continue to choose to do it, well, that's a choice. And then I'm choosing to do something that's out of integrity. Um, when we practice, we get to figure that out. And so then the question is, okay, well, what does it mean to practice?
exactly. That was going to be my next question.
And the framework that I've come up with for me, people can take it or leave it, but I've found it to be helpful, is I practice magic. And what magic means, I'm not necessarily talking about the woo woo Harry Potter stuff that we're going down, although sometimes, sure. But everybody is different. And so cultivating a practice that helps you be mindful, and I don't mean just mental, I mean, can you be present, is what I mean by mindfulness. Can you be aware? That's the M. Is it an adaptable practice? You know, life is going to throw curveballs at you. And if the practice can't be adapted to whatever's going on, you're going to struggle. Can it be a gentle practice? And gentleness throws people a lot because people are like, oh, but I like to go really intense when I do things. Well, two dynamics to that. One is if you're used to driving a car 90 miles per hour, or 120 kilometers per hour, whatever it is, you know, slamming on the brakes is not gentle. So don't slam on the brakes. And at the same time, if you're really looking for a hard discipline and you're somebody who does like to push and not be gentle, the discipline of gentleness is a really, really hard practice.
I can relate to that. Yes.
um, so that's MAG. I is find something that's inspiring to you. Uh, so if it's a practice that doesn't actually move you, if it's something that you hate doing that's just numbing you out, uh, it's a shitty practice. That's not to say that, you know, there's not some boredom or mundane nature to doing something consistently, but it should be something that activates your system. And lastly, it should be something that helps connect you to both yourself and something greater than yourself. And so maybe that looks like meditation, but we could go down a rabbit hole of what does meditation actually mean. what There's so many different types of meditation. So for me, I love ritual, I love ceremony, I love telling stories. And so, you know, my morning practice starts with opening up the directions, orienting myself to the world, invoking the elements in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it's lighting a candle or putting my feet on the earth or running some water over my head and face, breathing for air, and then connecting with spirit in some way, shape, or form. And most of the time, that's through a deep listening. My main practice these days is listening, and it's hard because I have to watch my mind and what my mind is trying to listen to that cacophony, but also see if I can feel into the subtle nature of things and what else is there, and can I listen to that too. And so, if you want to call that meditation, great. Um, for me, I work on being real and living in flow. And the more real I am, the more energy around me flows. The more I practice being in flow, the more real I can be. They go hand in hand. And I don't know if that's a perfect answer to your question, but you know, I do view being real as a compass.
Yes.
And so if people are listening to this and be like, okay, Michael, this sounds very etheric to me and kind of I need a practical next step. It's like, okay, do you tend to be more, on a positive note, do you tend to be more relaxed, engaged, authentic, or loving? What's your strength within that? For me, I would say it's probably relaxed and authentic.
Yes.
um, the engagement is my challenge. And, how can I be engaged without turning off the relaxation? There's a really fine balance because also, if I'm not engaged enough, I'm not actually relaxed. So I would encourage people to start exploring that. And then, if you struggle to be relaxed, find a practice that helps cultivate a sense of relaxation. It can be breath work, it can be meditation, it can be going for a run or working out, or honestly, it can just be laying down on a hard, solid surface, no distractions, put your phone away, stop listening to it, and just be. And you'll find that in a very short amount of time, your body actually gets to relax. If it's loving, imagine somebody that's going through a challenge that you might not like at the moment, um, and find one good thing about them and focus on that good thing. Take any of your positive attributes that you've earned and try offering it to them from a selfless place because love is selfless. And if it's being engaged, just get off your ass and do something. It really doesn't matter what. If you're struggling with being engaged, literally do anything. um, and if it's being authentic, figure out who you are,
Yes.
and that requires going inside. And so the same practice. Let's take meditation, a receptive meditation. So you're watching your mind, you're just going through the process. If you're doing that to be relaxed, right? It's wonderful. You're seeing how you are overly engaged and your focus and awareness is on letting go of that. If you're so relaxed, you're going to see yourself checking out of your meditation and maybe you're working on engagement. So, can you stay present? If you're working on authenticity, you can meditate and say, "Who am I? Who am I? Who am I?" Thank you, Ramana Maharshi, for those practices. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And allow yourself to see the true nature of your thoughts and what resonates as you. And if it's loving, can you sit down and actually do a practice and love every aspect of it? And it doesn't matter how it's going, you're just working on loving it. So the tool, the practice doesn't matter. It is how you approach it.
Yeah, it's exactly.
And that's where, and I've probably talked way too much. Thank you for listening to my rant, everybody. But there, life is a dance. And so engage with the dance, see how you're dancing, and then if you don't like it, stop dancing that way. Try something else.
Exactly. I mean, it's all about watching yourself. We talked about this a bit, right? But the world, the way it is right now, with all the distractions, it's so easy to not give yourself the time and the love to be able to go within and see how you're dancing, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't know how you're dancing, then how are you going to be able to change it? You can't.
It's stupid simple. Like transformational work is really, really simple at a foundational level. It's like there's a pattern that you have that you no longer want to carry and you want to stop doing. It's either serving you in some way and you can figure out how it's serving you, or it used to serve you in some way and it's time to let it go. And, for me, I've studied energy work and shamanism and coaching, and I've created ceremony to help let it go. Because we're not just talking about psychology here. That's the tricky part. It's like you can change your mindset and say, "Oh, I know I should be positive and speak to myself lovingly." But if you're still living out a myth that you are the underdog, that you're unworthy, it doesn't matter what you change in your psychology. You have to change the myth. You
Yes.
have to change the energetics. You have to change your direct experience of spirit and life force that comes through you. And that's where, again, the fun starts. How do we do that?
So you said you do rituals for this, right, or ceremonies. Tell us a bit more about it. I'm actually curious. As I'm exploring this path a bit more myself, I'm curious how you do it.
So I have studied, in addition to doing an in-depth dive to mestizo shamanism from the jungle, working with plant medicine and ayahuasca. I've also studied some Andean energy medicine, which doesn't require the consumption of plant medicine. And the way that I work is ceremonially. And what I mean by ceremony is that there's a container. So whenever I'm working with a client, we start by calling in the directions and invoking a container for transformation. This is like an alchemical vessel, right?
Okay.
If you if you were cooking up some soup, right, and you don't have anything to put the soup in, the soup just goes everywhere. You can't do anything with
Yeah.
it. So we need that container first. Once that's there, we need to figure out what we're cooking. And so the question is, how do you want to be? I don't care what you want to do in the nicest way. I care how you want to be. And that state of being acts as a compass. And once that compass is set, then when you're exploring your life, you can actually see all the different patterns that are in the way. You're not just running around in circles. You're like, oh, that's not in alignment. Once you've kind of walked the terrain of your life with that compass and you found those patterns, that's where we do ceremony in a smaller sense. And so if we're doing kind of the Andean energy medicine approach, we're going to be clearing out a pattern from your energetic body, your aura, that is kind of stagnant or activated and is getting translated through your chakra system and having a physical manifestation. So we do that by working with the chakra system and clearing out the energy there and then filling it with pure divine light.
Mm.
That's the brass tacks of it from a shamanic
Yeah.
standpoint. uh, but the most important thing is some sort of ritual. We shift mythos, we shift energy through ritual. And so, and through ceremony. And so, let's say that somebody's having a bunch of family patterns come up. Maybe it's energy work, or maybe we need to have a ritual where you go in and say all the things that you never said to your family. And so we set the space, we have artifacts that represent those energies, we call them in, and then you get to have that conversation. And then you take that conversation, you take that energy, and you clear it by throwing it into a river or a lake, or you bury it, whatever it may be, or you make an offering of some sort. That's ritual as well. And so, what I'm looking for when I'm working with clients is what is the right ritual that will help move this energy through. Once that energy has been worked through, it is transformed. And that's when we get to discover the gold, right? There's this dynamic within the new age spiritual community that I'm sure many people have experienced, which is a bunch of people who are new agey walking around like they're floating on the clouds, but there's no grounding to them, you know?
Yeah. I've seen that.
Alchemy is the process of turning lead into gold, right? Gold still has weight to it. So when we are acting in accordance with our dharma, with how we want to be, with our true purpose and way of being, there's responsibility in that, but it feels correct. So we say yes to it. We like it. We take it on. It shines and it radiates. The ether is part of the transformational process, letting go of things, allowing them to clear, yes. But then there's a coagulation, right? The famous alchemical term is solve et coagula, separate and then recombine. There has to be this integration at the end after the separation. And if we put this into the hero's journey framework, like you go down into the underworld, you go into the shadow, and then you return with the treasure that you are supposed to share out, right? And it doesn't have to be a preachy share, it can just be a way of existing. But gold feels good, and it feels like the correct burden and the correct weight that we're navigating the world with. The lead feels like we're weighed down and like we're Atlas trying to push or hold up the weight of the world the entire
Essentially, yeah,
time. And so, you know, I'm more interested not in people saying, oh, I wish that I could just feel etheric all the time. Because what they're saying is, I wish that I didn't have to carry around all this stuff. And I wish I could just be out of here. And I say, that's great. Let's drop the stuff, but only so that you can have the right soil and the right nutrients for you to actually grow and blossom into however you want to relate with the mystery in a more productive, useful, and beautiful way. Um, so I find that ritual, ceremony, and containers help take that old stagnant energy, those patterns that aren't serving us anymore, and gives us a way to actually let go of them versus just mentally navigating around them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, thank you for taking the time to explain that. It's definitely everything you talked about resonates because it's something I've been studying and learning more in the last few months myself. And it's definitely very interesting to see once you go down that path how things shift, and they shift very quickly in whatever direction you need them or you want them to shift. And we talked about the importance of being. I'm curious to see if you can tell us a story, either from one of the people you worked with, maybe your personal story, it could be something you witnessed in plant medicine or otherwise, or something powerful that really confirmed for you that, yeah, you know what, this is the path that I need to be going on and others should be going on, because I would imagine it would be something earlier in your journey, but those type of stories seem to inspire people to be like, hey, maybe I should look into this a bit more and take it more seriously.
Mm, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
uh, okay, let's see if I can find one. I'll use one of my own stories because that feels correct.
Yeah, of course, let's do it.
So, early on in my plant medicine studies, a lot of what I was working on at an individual level was clearing the sense of shame, kind of what's my purpose of being here in one sense, but it was also about healing my relationship with my dad. My dad committed suicide when I was 14. It set me on
Mm.
this lovely trajectory. So, in some ways, I thank him at this point in time. Uh, and after I had cleared out some of those patterns, I had just done a diet, which is working with another plant that's not ayahuasca to kind of clear out the energetic body. Think about it as a glacier going through and scraping the lichen off of the energetic rocks of your being.
Oh.
Um, and I was going into ceremony after that, and I was just really noticing how mean I was in my conversations with myself. Like I was an asshole, um, and just like very hateful, being like, "You're not good enough," but in this way that was trying to motivate me to be better.
Yes.
And so it was coming from this place of not being enough. And I went into ceremony and I had this realization that that was a pattern, that way of talking to myself was a pattern that I had adopted from my dad. And I realized that that was how I was loving myself. I was loving myself by being hard on
Yes.
myself.
Yes.
And I also realized that I didn't know how to love myself unless I was being mean to myself. And that was tricky because my options were, well, either keep doing this and know how you quote unquote love yourself, but know that it doesn't work, or say, I don't know how to love myself without doing this, but I'm not going to do it anymore. And I made the decision and I cried and was like, just can't do this. I don't know how to love myself, but I'm not going to do this anymore. And I'm going to learn how to love myself. And the shaman who was facilitating the ceremony kind of came over and looked at me and she said, go take a walk really quickly. And it was not an ayahuasca ceremony. It was a San Pedro or Wachuma ceremony. And so it's the daytime, it's lovely, and I go outside of the maloka or the kind of
Yeah.
ceremony
Yes.
space, and every single tree, every single plant was singing a song in color at the same time, and I was just getting bombarded by music and beauty, and it was stellar. And I heard this one very particular song that stayed with me, and I went on this journey. Fast forwards maybe a month, 2 months, and I had just done another diet. And at the end of that diet, I had kind of messed up within myself, or I had a story that I messed up and acted out of integrity in some way, shape, or form. And I went into ceremony with ayahuasca, and the medicine came in strong, and she was like, "You are not allowed to do this work," is the story that I had, at least. She was like, "Lay down." It's like, okay. It's like, think about every single time that you have known what was in integrity with yourself and acted otherwise. And I had to mentally go through my entire life and find all of those moments that I was conscious of. And it was exhausting.
Oh yeah.
And I did it to the best of my ability. And I was like, okay, can I get back up now? Just like, no. It's like, okay. And then the shaman who was leading the ceremony started this one ikaro, or medicine song. And it was the same exact song that I had heard when I was out on the bridge during the Wachuma ceremony. And it said, okay, you've learned your lesson. It is time to get back up. Learn how to love yourself when you're out of integrity and know how to fix it and own those mistakes so that you don't repeat them.
Mm.
And that still to this day is one of the most interesting experiences that I've had, where I've heard a song from a plant, no idea what plant it is, in a very different space, and then I've heard it again later in a separate ceremony with a different facilitator, and it's been helpful in terms of teaching me how to love myself and navigate through shame, mistakes, because I still don't know how to love myself, Constantine. I just am better at it than I was.
Yes.
And
I love
so, like, we're all learning how to love ourselves and to love others, and we make mistakes. And the shame and the guilt does have a place. There is such a thing as healthy shame and healthy guilt. But a lot of it is just old stories that stick around. Like, if my shame helps me learn, oh, that was out of integrity, and I feel bad about being out of integrity, great. Learn, move forwards. I don't have to hold on to that self hatred forever.
Yes.
And so, you know, plant medicine, energy work, ritual, ceremony is all fantastic at helping us let go of the energy, the imprint that is there, and what I find to be incredibly, incredibly important is to help us let go of the affinity for it. Because if we don't clear out the affinity for it, we're just going to invite it back in.
Absolutely. 100%.
And so that's where I really appreciate the uh, kind of Andean energy work from the Quero and the Laika down in Peru, which is like, no, let's get rid of the affinity for it and then fill it with that divine light of being so that you don't have to keep dealing with it. And I've seen some amazing transformations through that work where it's like, oh, I don't even remember that pattern.
Yeah.
Like it's like that is my preferred state of being. I no longer have to remember the pattern because it doesn't operate through me anymore. Um, yeah,
That's a beautiful story, Michael. I mean, Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful, and the loving oneself. That's wow. Hits close to home, right? Because much like you, and I'm sure many people listening and out there in the world, the only way we know how to love ourselves is through being very harsh to ourselves and thinking we are motivating and inspirational and all that, and it's anything but. And then it also manifests externally on how you love anything else, right?
Hmm.
Partner or otherwise. And it's that has been a big eye opener for me as well. And like you, I still have no idea. Have made progress. That's all I know.
Well, but that's the best part. I wish people could see and understand how excited I am. Like that unknowing is the best part. That is the adventure. I don't know. Cool. Then I can listen. Then I can learn. Then I can dance.
Yeah, and I know we could go down another rabbit hole here, right? With how the ego makes you think you do know all of this, so then you don't listen, so then you don't spend time in introspection and all of that. Because I've been there myself many times.
Oh, yeah. And look, I'll make what would have been a long conversation short. Okay. The ego has its place.
Of course.
People are way too busy in the spiritual path trying to get rid of the ego before they develop a healthy ego,
Mm.
right? So develop the healthy ego first and then work on letting it go. Otherwise, you're doing spiritual bypassing, you're skipping out on steps, you're avoiding it, looking at things, you're pushing things under the rug. It's not healthy and it's all going to come out sideways.
Yeah.
So the more you can become comfortable being you, knowing that you're a work in progress, knowing that progress actually isn't even the right word. We are in the process of becoming. People are so fascinated by reincarnation and past lives and all of these other things, right? Are you curious about the incarnation process? Just the process of being born and spirit coming into form without all of that? Do you think it's done in your life? It's not. And you don't know where it's going to go. the my biggest pet peeve at the moment, and it's funny because I'm sure I'm hypocritical about it sometimes, is people who come in and say, I have the answer.
Absolutely.
And you know what? Maybe they have the answer for them. But in my perspective, we are consistently relating to the mystery and engaging with the mystery. As soon as we state, I know, it is not the mystery anymore. It's just not. If the mystery had an answer, it wouldn't be called the mystery. And so there's things that we can learn, there's perspectives that we can glean, we can have revelations, and we can have knowledge and wisdom, which is more important than knowledge, the embodied knowledge that we operate through the world with. And it's still a mystery. We are still in a process of becoming. Who am I today? Who are you today? How do who is the mystery today? And that is where I think the process of relaxing is so important. Because if I'm so neurotically wound up around what is going to happen today, then I actually am not relaxed enough to just ask the mystery and to ask life, how's it going today? How do you want to be today? Oh, you're a little you're a little frustrated today, Michael. That's okay. How do we want to dance with that? Instead of, well, you shouldn't be frustrated. No, I'm human. You can be frustrated, you can be angry, you can do all these things. Just don't hold on to them.
Yes.
Like, but don't ignore them. If we have to become so neurotic about being perfect spiritual beings at all periods of time, that we actually disengage with the process of being human and stop looking at what does it mean to be human and spiritual, we're missing all of the adventure.
We are, yeah,
And so I was
100%.
like, come on, people, buckle up. Let's do it. Are you ready for the pain and the suffering and the love and the joy? And ayahuasca, plant medicine, doing your practices, just saying yes to being alive and everything that entails opens up so many different paths that it will surprise people with how amazing and beautiful and awe-inspiring that can be. Um,
Yes. That's a beautiful place to wrap it up because oh my god, Michael, I could talk to you and listen to you for hours here. We cover lots of super important topics there, and hopefully anyone listening can glean some value from it and bring it to their own introspection, their own reflections, their own meditations or practices. So, Michael, again, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks for having me on, Constantine.
Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of personal transformation. Your presence and engagement are at the heart of what we do, and I sincerely appreciate you, your time, and thirst for knowledge, inspiration, and empowerment. Please consider showing your support by hitting like, subscribe, leaving a comment, or writing a review. Your engagement not only fuels our mission, but also helps others discover these insights. For more daily guidance on personal transformation across the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical realms, be sure to visit our website at unleashthyself.com. You can also find us on Instagram at Unleash Thyself Today, TikTok and YouTube at Unleash Thyself, and there we post daily content designed to inspire and empower you on your journey. If you have any specific thoughts, questions, or feedback, I truly value your input. I would love to hear from you. Together, we're building a community united in authenticity and purpose. Once again, thank you for being a part of this movement. Until next time, continue to embrace your true self and live a life on purpose with purpose. See you in the next episode.